Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the John F. Kennedy Jr. Forum, and thank you for being with us. My name is Elaine Popoulias, and I'm the director of the COCOLIS program on Southeast and East Central Europe here at the John F. Kennedy School of Government. The COCOLIS program and Institute of Politics have the honor to serve as co-sponsors of tonight's forum. The COCOLIS program was founded at the John F. Kennedy School of Government in 1997 with the mission of building bridges and networks for peace and prosperity in Southeastern Europe by facilitating interaction and communication among the peoples of the region and those vitally concerned with its advancement. Many were skeptical that a program focused on this region at that time with such a mission could succeed. In 1997, Southeastern Europe was a region of weak democracies, impoverished economies that was just recovering from violent conflict and decades of authoritarian rule. Today, 8 years later, the success of the COCOLIS program is a testament to all those who dared to be idealists, to those who dared to imagine that this region could come to symbolize progress, cooperation, and innovation. The COCOLIS program found a natural home at the Kennedy School, a place where new ideas on effective governance are inspired by bringing together leaders and those engaged with the study of public service. It is an institution founded on the principle that overcoming the world's most pressing public policy challenges can only be achieved through international cooperation. Our students not only take these lessons to heart, but also put them to practice as they set out from the Kennedy School to leave their footprints around the globe. And tonight, the presence of Vuk Jeremic, a 2003 Kennedy School graduate and COCOLIS fellow, now chief advisor to President Tadic, gives us reason to believe that this appreciation for public service and international cooperation among our graduates is having valuable effects. Before I invite Dr. David Elwood, Dean of the Kennedy School, to the podium to introduce our distinguished guest, I would be remiss if I did not mention that almost 3 years ago to this day, I had the honor to introduce the late Prime Minister Zoran Đinđić on this very stage. Although his life and work ended all too tragically, Zoran Đinđić's vision, dynamism, and commitment to peace and prosperity for all of Europe continues to inspire people around the globe. Boris Tadic, a colleague and friend of the late Prime Minister, not only worked alongside Zoran Đinđić to shape this vision, but since his days opposing communist rule, Boris Tadic has worked relentlessly to make it a reality. President Tadic, we thank you very much for being with us this evening. We applaud your efforts to strengthen the transatlantic partnership, and as Serbia is a key part of ensuring a Europe that is united, free, and at peace, we wish you strength and much success. Without further ado, I would like to call upon our leader, Dean David Elwood, one of the U.S.'s most influential scholars of poverty, welfare, and family change, who in 1993 was appointed Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation at the U.S. Department of Health, to introduce our guest. Dean Elwood, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Elaine, and the COCOLIS program is certainly one of the great jewels of the school and of the university, so I very much am grateful to you and all of those that participate in so many important ways. So, festina lente, did I say that right? How do I say it? Hurry up slowly. This is an old Latin phrase that President Tadic used in his old job as defense minister of Serbia and Montenegro. It's a phrase that can describe his approach to reform. Known for his image as a sensible pragmatist who stays cool under fire, President Tadic has pledged to bring stability and an end to the divisions in the Balkan Republic. Quite a challenge. However, his work in this effort did not begin with his election in June of 2004. It started many years ago and has continued strong to this day. He's been a lifelong political activist. He was convicted for his opposition activities supporting Solidarity while studying psychology in Belgrade under communist rule. Now, I don't know what necessarily studying psychology had that led him to be so in favor of Solidarity and take such risks, but we're certainly grateful that he did. A member of the Democratic Party since 1990, he's worked closely with his friend Zoran Đinđić and helped form the political coalition that ultimately removed Slobodan Milosevic from power in 2000. Proving his ability to lead and his commitment to change, President Tadic, once a professor of psychology, has served his country in various ways. In 2002, he became Minister of Telecommunications in the government of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, was later Minister of Defense from the Councils of Ministers of Serbia and Montenegro. And as Minister of Defense, he became famous for his reforms of the army and his plan to send Serbian contingent on a mission to Afghanistan in a bid to warm his country's relations with NATO. He made the General Staff directly accountable to the Defense Ministry for the first time since World War II, and launched a modernization plan aimed at readying the armed forces for partnership in NATO's Partnership for Peace. In 2003, he was elected representative to the Assembly of Serbia and Montenegro, became acting head of the group of Democratic Party representatives. And of course, that year, the tragedy struck the nation. Zoran Đinđić, the prime minister of the country, was assassinated, as many of you know well. And with his death, disillusionment about the nascent democratic process seemed likely to take hold. And yet, Tadic's patience, his vision, helped bring hope. And in 2004, he was elected as head representative of his party in the National Assembly, and in June became president of Serbia. He's worked to promote unity across ethnic and religious divisions as well as political ones. He embraces democracy, and he's worked very hard to move the nation closer to the European Union and NATO. He's promoted technological advancement. Remember his early ministry in technology, and has facilitated economic improvements, supported the democratization of institutions, and respect for human rights. All of this is done with an urgency for progress and the wisdom of patience, something we all can learn. And as a result of his efforts, for example, he got an award that's an unusual one. He topped the World Bank's list of countries leading the way when it comes to cutting red tape. Now, that seems to me a real honor. And there was red tape in supporting new businesses, according to the World Bank report, as I mentioned. Michael Klein, the bank's vice president for the private sector development, said, from setting up businesses through dealing better with construction licenses, improving property registration, hiring new workers, to paying taxes, contract enforcement, bankruptcy, Serbia and Montenegro covered the waterfront. In addition, the European Commission recommended in April this year that the European Union begin talks with Serbia and Montenegro on an agreement that could lead to EU membership. Hurry up slowly. This is an approach that seems to work. Now, I should also say that I have a particularly soft spot in my heart for Serbia. And the reason is very straightforward. My first true love was a Serbian woman. Now, sadly, she is no longer my current love, and my current love has been my current love for 20 or 30 years, and so it's worked quite well. I will say she once in her, never mind. But I will always remember with the greatest of fondness the remarkable woman, Mitzi Jokic was her name. In any case, with that rather personal introduction, let me turn it over to a man who is also married to someone from that region, has 2 children, and is a remarkable man, President Tadic.
When I'm seeing you, I prefer to be student than president. But this is a destiny, and on the beginning, I have to say that my first love also was some Serbian student. So many years ago. This is why we are sharing some views. Well, distinguished faculty, dear students, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to be invited to address the John F. Kennedy Forum at the Kennedy School, and the privilege to be back at Harvard. I thank Harvard's president, Larry Summers, as well as the Kennedy School's dean, David Elwood, and Elaine Papoulias, the director of the Kokalis program. I had the pleasure to meet them all earlier today. Harvard University is well served by such brilliant individuals. Thank you all for the invitation. I am honored to be standing on the same stage on which my dear friend Zoran Đinđić the assassinated Prime Minister of Serbia once stood. Zoran and I share the vision for Serbia and for Southeast Europe. Today, as we approach the 5th anniversary of the October the 5th democratic revolution in Serbia, I want to talk to you about the vision, a vision that my friends in Georgia and Ukraine took up during the Rose Revolution and the Orange Revolution. So today, I want to discuss with you the future of democracy in Southeast Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, ensuring the growth of democracy is the most important legacy these generation's regional leaders can give to their children. Only together can we fully consolidate democracy in the most volatile corner of Europe. And the why to do it is through full Euro-Atlantic and European integrations. This is our goal. Southeast Europe can become a new Euro-Atlantic strategic anchor. My region can build another bridge across the Atlantic in a troubled time for an alliance that serves both a political and military function. Already, the various governments of Southeast Europe have contributed to fighting the war on terror by apprehending suspected terrorists and shutting down terror cells. But our work is not done. The war on terror rages on, and challenges remain. The Euro-Atlantic integration of Southeast Europe contributes to regional security and stability. It contributes to consolidating the region's democracy. It will strengthen and unify the region. And it will accelerate the pace at which Southeast Europe will move toward European integration. Ladies and gentlemen, the European Union accession process will also secure the region's prosperity. This is in Europe's strategic interest. This is why the European Union remains committed to integrating Southeast Europe. And as we move toward EU accession, we must use the financial mechanisms provided to the region's countries to contribute toward reducing poverty. Because it is morally unacceptable for poverty and democracy to coexist in a 21st century Europe. And in Southeast Europe, substantially reducing poverty can hardly take place without an increase of FDI. Foreign direct investment contributes to stability, without which there can be no prosperity. Further, this double movement to Brussels, PFP and NATO, on the one hand, and EU on the other, will contribute to fighting organized crime at the regional level as well. Organized criminal activity has become a real threat to stability and prosperity, not only in Kosovo, my country's southern province, under UN administration since June 1999, but throughout the region. Fighting cross-border organized crime is a vital regional issue, and increased cross-border cooperation is essential. With the help of Brussels, we must establish transparent mechanisms to effectively manage our borders while facilitating the efficient flow of people and goods. Crime must not increase as trade increases. And we must act forcefully to combat the gangs that traffic in drugs, women, and children. Regrettably, much of this trafficking passes through Kosovo. This must stop. Ladies and gentlemen, Serbia is a keystone, the pillar in the cause of advancing democracy in Southeast Europe. For as we all know, my country has traditionally played an important critical role in leading the region. While seeking a more hopeful future, we must never forget our most recent past. This is why I am working hard to solidify democratic change in Serbia. This is the best way to draw our neighbors toward us. This cannot be done. Democracy cannot flourish without a full and open account of the past. We must take down the walls of mythology and tear down the heroic labels of men who committed atrocities in our name. Full reconciliation is in our national interest. This is why I have consistently called for full and immediate cooperation with the Hague Tribunal. All those who committed crimes must be held accountable. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a responsibility to our children, not only to confront the past, but also plan for the future. And in Southeast Europe, the greatest challenge to a democratic future remains Kosovo. Resolving the future status of Kosovo must be done in a way that does not violate the UN Charter, and it must contribute to regional security and to the security of Europe. The principles of the security of Europe are codified in the Helsinki Final Act in 1975 and reaffirmed in the 1990s Charter of Paris for a New Europe, the first statement of security principles of post-communist Europe. The gist of Helsinki for our purposes is this: peaceful settlements of disputes, protection of human rights and especially minority rights, and border changes only by consent. Helsinki reaffirms the distinction the UN Charter makes between self-determination and independence. It does so in the context of preserving the territorial integrity of states. This gives even more weight to the constitutional duty I have as a president to defend the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Serbia. The solution to Kosovo must be the product of consent, not coercion. Of course, the legitimate interests of Kosovo Albanians must be taken into account. We must work together to find a unique solution to a unique challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are not careful, an awful precedent could be created. This would lead to instability in the region, in Europe, and in the other part of the world. And it could mean the end of democracy in Serbia, because the future status of Kosovo and Metohija is inseparable from the future status of Serbia's democracy. And it is inseparable from the future status of our region. Ladies and gentlemen, in diplomacy, as you know, it is often necessary to speak delicately. When giving a speech on the futures of one's country, it is sometimes necessary to speak simply. Simply said, we can succeed or fail. If we succeed, we will cement the region's democratic revolutions. If we fail, we could plunge Southeast Europe back to the violence and instability of the recent past. Ladies and gentlemen, how should we define success? How can we cement the region's democratic revolutions? Together, we must embark on a journey that leads to a strategic solution. This solution cannot be an expedient one, based on abstract promises. Rather, it must be based on concrete results achieved on the ground, on deeds, not words. In this light, I see Serbia's proactive role in Kosovo's future status talks as an opportunity, not a liability. It is an opportunity precisely because the stakes are so high. The future of our democracy and the future of the region as a whole. For our part, Belgrade has already acknowledged that the future status of Kosovo will not resemble that of the 1990s. And in the near future, we intend to put forward concrete proposals on several issues. These include, first, moving the process of decentralization forward and demilitarizing Kosovo. Second, the sustainable return of the more than 200,000 cleansed Serbs, Roma, Turks, and others to Kosovo. Third, genuine promotion of democracy, protection of human rights standards, and safeguarding of religious freedom. A vital issue in the multi-ethnic future status of Kosovo is decentralization. For the Serbs and other non-Albanians of Kosovo, the comprehensive decentralization plan is not simply an issue of better governance. It is an issue of security that will enable expelled Serbs to return to Kosovo. Just a few days ago, a delegation of Serbs and Albanians met in Vienna to discuss moving forward on a comprehensive decentralization plan. So after years of stalling, it seems that we may finally be moving in a positive direction on this vital issue. While this positive movement is long overdue, we must not neglect the fact that the situation in Kosovo is much worse than any of us would like it to be. What I saw when I traveled to Kosovo in February shocked me profoundly. The worst sort of tyranny of the majority reigns over Kosovo. The provinces, Serbs, Roma, Turks, and other non-Albanians live in the worst conditions in Europe. We cannot gloss over the tragic reality of everyday life for Serbs, and we approach Kosovo's future status talks. To do so would blind us to the historic opportunity before us. An opportunity to bring prosperous, democratic stability to the entire region. Ladies and gentlemen, double standards may work in dictatorship, but have no place in democratic diplomacy. Choosing the right path for this region may not be most obvious or the easiest. But I say to you, let us take up the challenge and do what needs to be done to conquer the past and build a better future for Southeast Europe, a future of cooperation and integration, a future free of fear, suspicion, and mistrust. By bringing together compromise and principle, we can move faster toward total regional security and stability. A unified Western Balkans, moving strongly toward European integrations. Together, by working toward a mutually acceptable solution, we can reconcile our interests with our values. And we can show the world that we can do when we choose reason over passion, dialogue over distraction, reconciliation over revenge. Distinguished faculty, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday I walked along the river. On the way of JFK Memorial Park, I saw a quote by President Kennedy. He addressed the Massachusetts legislature in January 1961 before his inauguration in Washington. And this is what he said. When, at some future date, the High Court of History sits in judgment on each of us, recording whether, in our brief span of service, we fulfilled our responsibilities to the state, or success or failure will be measured by the answers to 4 questions. First, were we truly men of courage? Second, were we truly men of judgment? Third, were we truly men of integrity? Finally, were we truly men of dedication? And I thought about what President Kennedy had said and how true his words remain today. Are we up to the challenge? Can we create a region where children can be proud of their parents and parents can be proud of their children? I believe we can. With some imagination, a little goodwill, and the strategic vision of where the future lies, we can be such men. I thank you for your attention.
All right, those of you who are veterans of the forum will know that one of the most important parts of this whole event is the opportunity to ask questions of our guest. There are microphones located here, another one up here, a third one here, and a fourth one here. And I would just like to remind everyone the features of a good question. First, the person who is asking the question identifies themselves. Second, the question is short. And third, it ends with a question mark. So with that, I will start up here, and we'll just rotate around. And those of you where there's a long line might think about moving across the others, because we're just going to rotate around. Okay, right up here.
Good evening. My name is Luc Roulet. I'm a student here at the Kennedy School. First of all, I would like to praise your courage to go to Srebrenica. I know it was not an easy task for a Serbian president. On that line, a question on Bosnia. What do you see is the role of Serbia to enhance the democratic process in Bosnia, and especially disentangle the Serbian police with the Republika Srpska police with the, let's say, southern part of Bosnia, and more in general, how do you see the regional cooperation with Bosnia? Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I have to say that this visit was the big challenge for me, personally speaking, and big challenge in my country also, because I had some people who cannot understand why I visited Srebrenica. Some of them cannot understand what happened in Srebrenica because of very bad medias in the last decade of the 20th century. Secondly, I have to say that as a guarantor of Dayton's agreement, I, as the president of Serbia, I am for full integration of Bosnia and Herzegovina, without partition, right now and in the future. This is my approach. Thirdly, I have to say that I was born in Sarajevo, in Bosnia. Even though I'm president of Serbia, I was born in Bosnia. And I have a specific feelings about Bosnia, all nations in Bosnia. This is why when I am in official visits in Bosnia, I'm always in Mostar, Croatian district, Sarajevo, with Bosniak majority, and in Banja Luka with Serbian majority, thinking about all nations. This is my general approach. My answer about police reform is, this is a very difficult question because majority of Serbs refused these reforms. They supported reforms in defense sector, which is extremely important in terms of Euro-Atlantic future of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Right now, they are refusing reforms in police sector. In Dayton's agreement, we have a general approach that everything is acceptable, what is acceptable for all nations. I have a general attitude. If that is acceptable for Serbs, for Muslims, let's say Bosniaks, and Croats, I'm going to support that. If some nations are going to refuse some solution, I cannot support that. That is my general attitude. But this question has to be solved among the Bosnia, in the Bosniak institutions, especially in the parliament. I have to say that right now in Bosnia, we don't have a dictatorship. We have democracy. Very fragile, very young, but democracy. We have to support democracy. This is the first precondition for stability all regional countries. I'm caring about Bosnia, that means that I'm caring about democracy in Bosnia.
Right here.
Good evening, Mr. President. My name is Kuitesa Betulahu. I'm from Pristina, Kosovo. I'm a COCALIS fellow here in the MPID program. Forgive me, I'm not going to use very delicate language of diplomacy simply because as a Kosovar, I only get to read newspapers and a lot of times they're biased, so I would like a more genuine opinion. The first question I have regards obviously the upcoming negotiations on the status of Kosovo. The impression locally is that Belgrade is tending towards partition. Can you give us a sense as to whether do you see that as a viable solution that is conflict moderating in your approach on the side from Belgrade? Mm-hmm. If yes, could you argue why? If not, again, explain why would it work, why not? My second question is regards the influence of the Serbian Orthodox Church. Again, I'm coming here from what the impression is from within. And there's the idea that the Serbian Orthodox Church has very big influence on a lot of policy decisions in Belgrade. And specifically in the case of Kosovo in 2004, we saw the encouragement not to go to local elections. And as a result, we did not have the participation in local elections. And my question is, in the context of the negotiation, do you see the Serbian Orthodox Church as a limiting factor or not? If yes, why? If not, why? Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I have to say that the Serbian Orthodox Church has a very significant role in our country. This is the fact. In my address to the nation, when I was calling Kosovo Serbs to participate on the elections, Church was against. That means that my decision was my decision. And the influence of Serbian Orthodox Church was very slow in that time. Secondly, I have to say that I'm against partition. But I'm against partition on a general level. Independence of Kosovo is also some kind of partition. Partition of Kosovo is also unacceptable. This is my principle. This is my general attitude. I'm against fragmentation of the Balkans. The biggest problem of Balkans is fragmentation. If we are going toward the European Union, that means that we have to support integrational processes, not next fragmentation. I'm thinking about region. I'm not thinking only about Serbia. We have to find solution which is acceptable for all nations and all regional countries. This is very important. From that reasons, I think that defense reforms in all Balkans countries are crucial. Reforms in security is also crucial. I think that all regional countries has to go toward Euro-Atlantic integrations. In my country, they recognize me as a politician who is for full membership in a NATO of my country. I would like to see Albania in the NATO, Croatia in the NATO, Bosnia and Herzegovina in the NATO. In that circumstances, we are going to solve problems faster than before. With this umbrella, we are solving crucial problem. This is security. This is some kind of joke, but this is also a reality. I was a Minister of Defense. This is why I'm trying to convince my former counterparts to become presidents of the neighboring countries. We understand each other better than other politicians. But that can be very efficient. Believe me, that can be very efficient. I'm not talking only about defense. I'm talking about values, which we have to bring in the region. Thinking about Kosovo, Kosovo independence, Greater Albania, Greater Serbia, Greater Croatia, I think that we have to think firstly about values, human rights, economy, trading, infrastructure, services. To think firstly about enlargement of our own countries, not about services, content of the government. This is totally inefficient. I am against partition on all levels, and I'm not going to support partition as a president of Serbia.
Right here.
Good evening, Mr. President. My name's Glenn Ruga. I'm from the Center for Balkan Development here in Massachusetts. I want to thank you for being here tonight and addressing us. I'd like to ask you about war criminals and particularly General Ratko Mladic. 10 years after Srebrenica, it's a great travesty of justice that he and Karadzic are still at large. And many people in the international community would like to see this chapter closed. Around the time of the anniversary of Srebrenica, there was a lot of talk that he will be arrested, he might be arrested, he's going to be arrested, yet still we do not see him arrested. And I truly believe that you, as a reformist, would like to see that happen. But I'd like to ask you what you see are the obstacles in arresting General Mladic and what you think you can do to overcome these obstacles and to see that he's arrested by the 10th anniversary of Dayton this December.
Unfortunately, this is not my responsibility to arrest Ratko Mladic, even though I'm president of the country. This is because of constitutional responsibility. But at the same time, I have to say, as a Minister of Defense, I started an investigation about his position, maybe under control of some military staff. I couldn't find him in that time. What we know right now, that he is not under military protection. We know that clearly. This is very important. We have to solve this problem as a country. Without this solution, we cannot go ahead towards Euro-Atlantic and European integrations. This is the biggest problem for our country. Even though this is very simple for some of you, but this is a very tough problem for us. Believe me, this is not so easy to find somebody who has this kind of experience. I'm not saying that because of international community. I'm saying that because of us. This is in our national interest to find him and to send him into the Hague Tribunal. Why I'm saying that? This is only one way to protect our memories. I've been in Srebrenica, paying respect to the victims, Bosniak victims, thinking about them. At the same time, I was thinking about our victims in the past decade, but also in the Second World War in our region. also we had so many victims. We don't know how many. If we are going to capture Ratko Mladic and to send him into the jail, we are going to protect our memories. This is only one way to do that. This is why I'm saying this is in our national interest. But not only because of that. I'm trying to convince my counterparts in the region to share values, these kind of very simple values, that we have to accuse everyone who support war criminals. How to do that? To pay respect to the victims, everywhere in the region. I did it in Srebrenica. I'm going to do that again. I said that we did a lot of terrible things in Kosovo also. We suffered in Kosovo also, as a nation. But we suffered in Bosnia and Croatia also. I was trying to convince my friends from Croatia government to pay respect to our victims, which we had during the storm action in Croatia. I'm not talking about legitimate military operation in the storm action. In Srebrenica also. I'm talking about ordinary people. Someone killed ordinary people. Children, women, very old people on the street because they were member of some other nation. From my point of view, this is totally unacceptable for normal European region. My vision is to see Serbia, Montenegro, Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Albania, Fyrom, soon as possible in European Union. That is my vision. I'm happy if Croatia is going to become member of European Union next year. That will be very important for my country. But if we are going toward European Union, we have to bring European affairs and European values in our country. And this kind of approach. I cannot say that Ratko Mladic is going to be arrested in the next few days. I am not Minister of Interior, but I'm pushing Ministry of Interior and our government to do that every day. I'm doing that through our medias, in my public appearances. I'm doing that right now, using this floor to remind our government again to do that. This is how we are opening door toward the European Union and PFP.
Thank you for your courage.
Good evening, Mr. President. My name is Nicholas Kukrik. I'm from the Kennedy School of Government, and thank you again for coming to our school. My question was in relation to the union of Serbia and Montenegro, which, as many people in the audience will know, there's a current debate as to whether that union should be completely severed. And I'd heard previous comments of yours which suggested that you would be also an opponent of a breakage of that union. But I'd like to ask, at what point do the costs of maintaining that union, both political and economic, outweigh the benefits of that union as you see them now?
Thank you. I like this question because my origin is from Montenegro. This is very strange. I was born in Sarajevo. My grandmother is from Croatia. My father is from Montenegro. That means that I'm Montenegrin, but I'm Serbian president. But this is why I like these regional issues. This is why I'm caring about region perspective very much. State Union Serbia-Montenegro is, in my vision, something what we need. I'm going to explain to you why. I mentioned a few minutes ago how important is defense reform in our country, in the regionals. Serbia-Montenegro has a specific geostrategic position in Southeastern Europe. We have borders with all other neighboring countries. We are in the middle of the road. Without Serbia-Montenegro's democracy and reforming in defense sector, we don't have stability in the region. Serbia and Montenegro can be anchor of this stability. Thinking about NATO perspective of Serbia and Montenegro, that means this is good for all neighboring countries. Fighting organized crime, all kind of trafficking, human beings, weapons, drugs. This region is a very sensitive part of the Europe. From that reason, some other Western countries in the Europe are suffering very much because of influence of organized crime from this region. I think that Serbia and Montenegro is, in terms of, from that reasons, from the reasons of defense and security, fighting organized crime, all kinds of organized crime, fighting terrorism, which is possible in the region, I have to say that, can be very important country regarding future of the region. Right now we have some kind of instability of state union. In Montenegro we have a government parties who are for the independence. They are going to consume Belgrade's agreement, which means that referendum is possible to organize next year. Referendum for independence or for the state union Serbia-Montenegro. I have a very good communication with them, talking about that as a democratic issue. They have a right to decide in which way they are going. I mean Montenegro. But at the same time, we have a problem because we have a splitting of Montenegrin population on both sides. 50% of them are for independence. Other 50% are for state union. I think they are for federation, not for state union, for very strong country. This is a problem. If we are imagining solution for independence, what is going to be with the other 50% of people who are against? What will be contribution to the stability? This is why I'm asking Montenegrin leaders on the both sides, in opposition and in the government, to be careful, to care about stability and the consequences of this referendum. I am for state union Serbia-Montenegro, but this is up to the Montenegrins to decide in which way they are going, with Serbia or without Serbia.
Right up here.
Thank you. My name is Pranvera Rišica, and I'm also from Kosovo. I have a couple of questions in relation to the last statements that you have made, but just before I start, I would actually like to add a comment. I was in Pristina. I came here just a couple of weeks ago, so basically I was in Pristina during your visit in Kosovo. And it was your statement that you made in relation to the security of the minorities in Kosovo that I have to react to, because it is true that the Serbian minority does not still have a full freedom of movement in Kosovo, but that's definitely not the same situation in terms of the other minorities. I mean, I know that this is not forum for debate, but I just think that it is something that needs to be highlighted. My question is basically, my first question is in relation to that. You mentioned that the Serbian minority does not have the freedom of movement. One of the key issues in Kosovo is basically integrating Serbian population into the government, which they have refused to do so far. I'm not saying that the Kosovo government was perfect in trying to get those two together or in trying to reach out to the communities, but at least there were some steps that were done. And we have seen quite a lot of resistance from the Serbian enclaves and Serbian community to actually integrate in the government. What have you as a president and what is the Serbian government actually doing in order to bridge those two together and encourage the Serbian population to participate in the into the Kosovo government?
That would be very dangerous to encourage Serbian population from Kosovo to be involved in the Serbian government.
Well, yeah, that was a lapsus lingua, I guess, but the question still remains the same. And we know, I mean, I don't want to go into the details of explanation and description of the situation
Well,
because that's going to be too much. My other question is, there's a lot of talk about, of course, the coming discussions and negotiation about the future Kosovo status. And we'll hear a lot in the media about Serbia is not for independence, but more than autonomy. What is the option?
Good.
And my third question is...
Two is
Okay.
one too many. So
Okay.
thank you very much.
After this session. Well, thank you. First of all, I have to say that Serbia's community in Kosovo has some politicians who are representatives of these ordinary people. I was calling Kosovo Serbs to participate on the last elections in Kosovo, and more of them refused. Even though I was calling them to participate. They have a problem. They have a real problem. When I was traveling through Kosovo, I saw what is the problem. They are living in enclaves. They don't have a freedom of movement. This is the fact. They are in a terrible situation, really terrible situation. Next time you are going with me on Kosovo to see real situation. But how to convince somebody to participate in a government if this government is clearly for independence? Serbian politicians on Kosovo who are representing ordinary people are against independence. If you are expecting that they are going to participate in a government which is for independence, this is impossible. I was calling them to participate in the institutions. That means in the parliament. That means in the other institutions, which is extremely important. This is my approach. I'm respecting democratic values. I'm respecting rights, their rights. When I was traveling through Kosovo, I was trying to encourage them to show their interest, to participate in the institutions. But they feel a fear. This is what I'm bringing here. With this, in these circumstances, this is totally impossible to imagine somebody who is going to participate in institutions, and this is a huge problem. But this problem we have to solve together, Albanians and Serbs. And I see two students on this floor. She is Albanian student, he is Serbian student. They are a few centimeters far. Look at them. This is the first step in our negotiation process. That's it. What was your second question?
My second question was
Third.
probably more in details of the proposal that you were talking earlier, because you mentioned
About
it's
less than
about-
independence, more than autonomy.
Yep,
Well,
that would be very helpful.
I talked about that in my speech. What does mean less than independence, more than autonomy? I mean that we have to have a unique solution for Kosovo. Everywhere in the region we have a unique solution. Dayton's agreement, FYROM, former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, specific, very unique solution. Serbia-Montenegro as a state union, very unique solution. This is why I think that we have to have a very unique solution. I'm against partition. That means that I'm against partition of Kosovo and I'm against partition of Serbia-Montenegro. Respecting Resolution 1244, Kosovo Metohija is a part of Serbia-Montenegro. I'm respecting resolution of United Nations.
Right here.
Yes, hi. My name is Fatan Bislimi, and I am from Kosovo as well. I'm a Kennedy School student here. Mr. President, during your speech, you talked about reconciliation and how that is important towards the prosperity of the region. Now, in regards to that, I'm sure you're aware that there is at least a couple thousand Albanians who are still missing and unaccounted for from the last conflict in Kosovo. A few thousand have been found in massive graves in Serbia itself, and the return of the bodies has been happening, but at a pace of a very slow return. You're returning 10, 15 bodies a month, which in my opinion, and I believe in the opinion of all Kosovars home, means that you are intentionally or unintentionally trying to keep the wounds of the war open. While those wounds are gonna be open, reconciliation will be a dream at this point. So what steps do you think your government and you as president should take to close the chapter of the war and begin the new chapter of reconciliation, having in mind that to close this chapter, you're gonna have to return those bodies that were killed, mostly civilian, women, children, by Serb forces during the Kosovar conflict to their home in Kosovo. My second question is, again, regarding reconciliation, because very much like you, I do believe that that's what we must do in order to have a good future. Now, the second question is, you were introduced as a man of courage, as a man of innovation, good ideas. Now, have you ever given it a thought to publicly apologizing for the crimes that happened in Kosovo during the war, during the massacres that took place under the military forces of Serbia? I acknowledge it is not the Serbian people's fault, but as a government, would you go publicly to say, hey, we're sorry what has happened, let's go forward? Thanks.
I have a very specific situation. Every few months, someone reminding myself to apologize because of victims in the other nations. I did it already. I did it in Sarajevo. I did it when I became a Minister of Defense. And I said so many times that we had some kind of music chair of violence and the killing in the region. If I have to be first one who is going to apologize, I'm doing that. And I did it. I talked in our medias about Albania's victims. Maybe you don't know, as a student, 25, 27 years ago, I was one of the 13 Belgrade students who signed petition for liberalization of Albanian students who were in demonstration for some kind of independence. They were very nationalistic oriented. I wasn't in that time, but I supported them because of democratic values, democratic rights in that time. I had some problem with our power, very communistic power in that time, but that was the truth. Secondly, I have to say, in terms of victims on the both sides, not only on the one side, after democratic changes in my country, after October the 5th, I was trying to find some Albanian politicians to share views about victims and missing persons. Do you know who was ready to meet me? Azem Vlasi, former communist leader. Only one politician from Kosovo. Others refused. I don't know why. I had a problem. In that time, I was a minister of telecommunication. That wasn't my duty. I had to care about mobile operators and the internet and the penetration in this sector and other things. But I was trying to do something because I had a problem with the people, families, Serbs, who are trying to find some missing persons. Their parents, sons, daughters. Trying to find solution for them. I was trying to convince some colleagues from Pristina to do the same thing in Pristina. Maybe this is a good opportunity to do that. I'm ready to do that with your leaders. This is why I was calling President of Kosovo, Ibrahim Rugova, to meet each other, to talk about ordinary problems, to find solutions for ordinary people. This is why I have an open door for this kind of meeting every day. I understand that he cannot easy to organize this meeting, but I have an open door for negotiation and to show to our nations that we can share some visions and we are respecting European values. Thank you.
There'll just be time for 2 more questions right here.
Mr. President, thank you for your visit here today. My name is Sandra Svitan. I'm a student here at the Kennedy School, and my question was concerning reparations. Currently, Croatia and Bosnia-Herzegovina are pursuing legal action against Serbia and Montenegro through the international court system regarding war damages, I guess in the billions of dollars. And I was wondering...
Where? In the court?
Through various international court systems. They're, I believe, suing Serbia and Montenegro.
That is an action in the court of Court of Justice, yes, in The Hague. This is the other one court, not the Hague Tribunal. This is the other one.
I was just wondering what your opinion may be regarding this matter.
I think that the reconciliation in these circumstances is very tough. I understand the Croatian and Bosnian intentions, but we are just in front of this process. I mean, that the process is going to start in February next year. And we are going to see what will be the decision of the court. We are ready for all kinds of decision. Thank you.
Last question up here.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President. Vojislav Popovic speaking.
He's from Serbia.
Yes. First question is why you didn't show up last week at the United Nations? Also, why the president of Serbia and Montenegro, Mr. Marovic, didn't show up? Does that imply that there is no future for Serbia and Montenegro? And also, can you comment on the recent scandals and controversies surrounding the government of Serbia and Serbia and Montenegro involving army? And as you know, you were Minister of Defense, concerning the company that produces the army clothing and,
Fighting organized crime, corruption is one of the key precondition for developing of our country. That means that we have right now a fair in the defense sector. I have a problem because I was a Minister of Defense. I was trying to convince the current minister to refuse all very dangerous activities in the Ministry of Defense. That was unsuccessful, but right now we have the consequences of that some people are in the jail. This is good. This is good. This is a good way how to fight corruption. At the same time, this situation in the Ministry of I mean that today, 4 officers are arrested and 1 businessman.
The owner of the company?
Yeah.
Okay.
And are you satisfied?
My question was, but I didn't know if it was... Thank you. I wanted to ask that, but I didn't know if it was the right moment to ask if that gentleman was arrested or not, but thank you.
Okay, but I mean that was the reason why President of Serbia and Montenegro, Mr. Marovic, refused to be on the head of our delegation in the United Nations. We have Serbia and Montenegro as a state union. I am a president of one republic in the state union. In that circumstances, that was unuseful to be a member of the delegation. I am right now in the United States. This evening, I am traveling to New York, and I'm going to have meetings with all very important people in New York. That is my participation in a delegation, and this is how I see my contribution solving this problem in the United Nations, to present our position in terms of Kosovo and other very important things on this forum. This is my answer. Thank you.
Yes, take the opportunity of being here to ask you to reflect on one last question as you go forward. we've heard a lot about very specific issues and big challenges. We also have a school here of a variety of people that hope to assume a position of leadership. You assumed a position of leadership somewhat unexpectedly and indeed in the midst of tragedy. But what lessons can you offer for our students about what it means to be an effective and thoughtful leader at this very, very challenging time?
This is secret. Well, I'm talking with my assistants almost every day about that. Some of them are very young and very ambitious. They cannot understand why they are not president. And why I am. But we have some problem which we have to solve almost every day. We are traveling through few zones every day. Economy, security, healthcare, relations in the cabinet, your party, so many influences, foreign relations, parliament, your signature on some acts coming from the parliament, which comes from the parliament. And every day you have to solve problems on so many levels. This is tough job. This is a job. This is not a position. This is a job. At the same time, you have to have a confidence to appear. Public appearance is something very important. To show your vision, to convince people that they have to follow you. You have to believe what you are saying. You have to know in which way you are leading a nation. You have to have clear vision. You have to have clear mind. But I know so many people who understand what does it mean to be leader. They have intention to become leader, but they cannot. And this is something very strange. I was explaining 95% of this story about leader, but this 5% I cannot explain. I don't know. Really, I don't know. I think, we talked about that a few minutes ago, when you are in trouble, this is a chance for you. Leaders are showing that they have a capacities to find solutions in a trouble. This is how you are becoming leaders. I need somebody who is going to be new president of my country. If I have somebody here, I see some Serbian students, I'm ready, really. But you have to win on the next elections. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, and a safe journey to all of you home. Thank you. Great work.